rights, but I think my mother-in-law, who in our family, we see mother in love, is here. There she is. I want to give her a big shout out. I know she's doing a football later on this afternoon, and you don't want to miss it. She has raised some pretty amazing children. I also want to thank everyone who helped make this conference possible. We appreciate your support. Everybody who opened up this building this morning, to all of the chairs being where they are and the food being served. We want to thank you all for doing the work today. And so, as Matthew said, I am Maryland's First Lady. So happy to be married a governor. But I have been a champion for Marylanders across more than 2 decades of public service to this state. And over the past year, my work has focused on uplifting our greatest strengths. And that's our children. Research shows that 80% of the brain is developed by the time we reach 3 years old. And it's so important that we start early with education, as you all know. And I want to share a story that illustrates why early education matters. It's a story that I love to tell about my husband. So when I was pregnant with our oldest child, who is now 14 years old, Wes would read to her almost every day while I was pregnant. And he would read Oh, the Places You'll Go by Dr. Seuss. And after I delivered Mia at the hospital, the medical team, as they do, placed her in that bassinet, they shined all the lights on her face, and she was crying, as babies do. So, Wes walked over to the bassinet, and he started talking to her. She stopped crying, and she turned her head and looked at him. She recognized his voice. And ever since, Mia has been an avid reader, and of course, a daddy's girl. The early learning window is critical, and every moment counts. For nearly half a century, 0 to 3 has worked to ensure that all children have a strong start in life. You serve as the leading voice for children across the country and the world around. You touch the lives of millions of parents, caregivers, and policymakers. And you ensure that we never lose sight of why we fight or who we fight for. Your work inspires me and my husband every day. Since Wes took office, we've worked to build strong families in Maryland. One thing I am proud of is my team's work to help address the crisis of a generation, and that's children's mental health. As a mom, one of the biggest challenges I see is isolation through social media. Our kids are spending time on their phones instead of with each other. Our kids are living online instead of living in the moment. As First Lady, I am creating more opportunities for our young people to put down the phone and engage with one another. Last year, we hosted an interactive day of wellness for young people at Government House. It's the official residence of Maryland's first family. We've invited young people from across the state who have been most impacted by the mental health crisis. We did yoga and meditation on the front lawn. We had panel conversations around the impact of social media with students, healthcare providers, and educators. And that event was only the start. So we know the challenges are enormous. And as I always say, I never knew that I would marry a governor, but I knew I was marrying a soldier. And they are just wired differently, and they wake up every day with a mission. Wes wakes up with the mission on his mind, the very thing he learned in the military, and that is to leave no one behind. It guides his choices, it guides everything he does with the administration and the future of our state. So without further ado, it is my most favorite thing to do. Introduce my husband, the love of my life, the first African-American governor in the history of this state. And the only sitting Black governor. The 63rd governor, my husband, Wes Moore.
I tell you what, boy, I hate following my wife, but I will follow her anywhere. And I love to watch her leave. That is so inappropriate, I'm sorry. Listen, I am who I am, man. Can we please give a huge round of applause to Maryland's remarkable First Lady? I also want to give a quick shout out to who was a person who was my first love, the person whose eyes I first looked into, and the person who first told me and reminded me that everything was going to be okay, and that is my mother, Joy Moore. Let's sit there together. That's so cute. It's actually not lost on me as I get a chance to look down and see my bride and my mom. That, you know, so first, just in way of background, I'm new to the world of politics. This is the first office I've ran for, first office I ever held. Before this, I was an entrepreneur. I was a military combat veteran. I worked in finance, and I ran one of the largest poverty fighting organizations in this country. But I was also an author, and it was interesting because the first book I wrote was a book called The Other Wes Moore, and I did a dedication to my publisher, thank you. And if you look at the dedication, some people have found it interesting that you know, I dedicate the book to Mama Wynn, Joy Moore, Shani Moore, Nikki Moore, and my wife Dawn Moore. And I signed it as a dedication as the women who guided my journey into manhood. And people found it fascinating that you had a book about essentially the journey to manhood of these two boys, and how you dedicated it to 5 women who helped to nurture that and helped to guide that. And the reason that it was is because it's my truth. That I've been so grateful for the fact that I've had remarkable women who have helped to guide me, and helped to push me, and helped to lift me up. And it reminds me every day that the reason that we do have a fundamental obligation to make sure that we are lifting our women and girls up is because they've been the ones who've lifted us up this entire time. But it's also a very fundamental reality that if you really want to be able to support our women and girls, make sure that our young men and boys aren't falling. And if you want to be able to support all of them, make sure you start. Because how we are supporting our children, how we're supporting our young people, will determine everything about what type of time, effort, services, supports, and resources that you will then have to spend later on. Because as a very famous Marylander, Frederick Douglass, said, yes, he was a Marylander. Come on now, it's all the time. Stand up. As he said, it's much easier to support a child than to try to heal a broken man. That early interventions matter. Because each and every one of us are products of it. And the truth is that this is not just about anecdotes, right? It's science. It's one of the things I love about it, because the beautiful thing about science and numbers is they don't have political affiliations or partisan philosophies. Science. At least, I wish most people watched it. But the science is just very clear on this. The science is very clear that when you're looking at a child from 0 to 3, the reality is that their brain is moving a whole lot faster and developing a whole lot faster actually than mine is. It's developing faster, more information is being retained, that you're seeing now 80% of brain development is happening to that child by the time that child is 5 years old. This is science. And so the reason that we want to make sure we are intervening early, the reason we are making sure that we are investing early, the reason is because there is going to be no higher return on investment than what you're going to see in that investment in a child from 0 to 3. Decided to be unapologetic about it. Because here at Maryland, we believe in science. And so when we came on board 2.5 years ago, the team and I, we were very clear. They said there are 3 things that we are going to do to make sure that we are following the science and being able to truly invest in the things that we know that are going to propel our young people to have a lifelong career of success and contribution. We are going to make sure we're investing in childcare. We're going to make sure that we are bolstering education and public education. And we are going to make sure that we're going to be unapologetic about our plight to fight child poverty in the state of Maryland. And so let me take a moment to talk about those 3 things specifically. First, let's talk about childcare. We know that early childhood development lays the foundation for every single thing that is going to come after within our child. And we know that if we want to be clear and create real pathways to long-term work, wages, and wealth for the people of this state, it means also being able to start early. That when you spoke to educators, and you asked educators, say, what do you need? What could help really help to create and forge that foundation for the young person? Is it more supplies? Is it more time, etc.? You know the thing that we most often heard particularly from kindergarten and early childhood educators? Just give me a classroom full of children ready to go. Just give me a classroom full of children who are ready. Give me a classroom full of children where you don't have some kids who are prepared and some kids who are not. Give me a classroom where you do not have kids who are still coming in and don't know a lot of the basics like numbers and colors and word formations. If you can give me that as an educator, we're ready to go. Because the challenge is when you have kids who are entering into the classrooms and meeting their teachers with such a disparity, oftentimes if you teach too fast, you will lose those children who are not prepared. If you teach too slow, you will lose those children who are. And so what can we do to make sure that every single child is going in and learning in that foundation? So what we decided to do is we said we are going to focus on childcare, we're going to focus on early childhood education, we are going to invest. And when we took office, we saw that Maryland spent about $128 million a year on childcare. Well, we said, I'm not sure if that's the right number. I think we need to do a little bit more than that. And so working in partnership with our General Assembly, what we've decided to do is we've come on board and we have not doubled, not tripled, but quadrupled that investment in early childhood. And today, the state of Maryland invests over $400 million in state funding going towards child care every single year. beautiful thing is that the results speak for themselves. Because we've already helped an additional 16,000 children receive child care since I was inaugurated as the governor of Maryland. By the way, for more people who are interested in data, that's about a 66% increase. And we're just getting started, y'all. And the reason is because we believe in investments that actually turn a positive return. Invest in childcare. Invest in early education. Invest in supporting children and families early. And you will see how those investments will have outstripped results. The second thing I want to talk about is how we have decided to bolster and focus on public education. Because that is the foundation of every single aspiration that we have within our state. In this year's budget alone, we worked with the General Assembly and we secured nearly $10 billion going towards public education in the state. But it's not just an absolute number, because the truth is, I actually don't think when people talk about an absolute number that is worth celebrating. It's important, but it's not just the how much. It's the where. It's the how. It's what's the measurements of accountability and the measurements of return that we are expecting. And so what did we decide to do? We decided to expand access into both public and private preschool programs. It's the fact that we decided to increase our K-12 teachers' salaries by 10% across the board. And we are committed to achieving a starting salary of $60,000 next year for all new teachers in the state of Maryland. Because our educators are some of our best and our brightest public servants, and it is not fair to ask people to take a vow of poverty because they believe in investing in our next generation. When Washington seemingly cannot do the things that state governments do all the time, which is keep our governments open. Even at a time when Washington seemingly cannot do the basic things like that families are doing every single day, like balance their budgets. We've decided in the state of Maryland, we are not going to let Washington's dysfunction spill into our life. And so even during the fact that we have a federal government shutdown, I have committed to the people of our state, the first days of this government shutdown, that here in the state of Maryland, we are committed to working to keep Head Start running because it is not fair to our children. Washington acts like children. Third, I want to talk about a very important pillar. Our quest to end child poverty. And I talk about this because I know that when we first started running for governor, I was told by people, you should be careful how much you talk about that because it really doesn't hold up. Poverty is kind of one of those things people want to go into discuss and address. That there's another word you could use, another thing, another description. And I said, okay, I understand. I understand what you're saying, I do. But here's what I also know. For the people who oftentimes have had to live and exist in poverty, and not just concentrated poverty, but often generational poverty, miss me with the semantics. Because if we're not going to use our time to actually address something that is actually one of the greatest stains in our society, then what are we doing in these seasons? whose destiny is being determined before they even have a say to determine it themselves. And I do not understand how a society can call themselves a moral one when they allow the amount of child poverty to exist that exists within our society. That intergenerational poverty is one of the biggest barriers to success that we have in our communities, that if you were born into poverty, you're more likely to struggle in school. If you're born in poverty, you're more likely to face challenges in building a successful and a sustainable career. If you're born into poverty, there is a high probability you will also die in poverty. We've got to end these cycles. We've got to be honest about what is causing them. And we've got to be sincere about our investments in ending them for good. And so that's why in Maryland, we decided to take this moment seriously. And why we are proud that we have made Maryland the first state in the country that now has a state and neighborhood-led, place-based poverty-fighting initiative, the first time we have seen that in the history of this country. That we launched something called the Enough Initiative, and for those who learn, I'm learning, in the military, we love acronyms. I realize no one loves acronyms more than governments. And Enough actually stands for engaging neighborhoods, organizations, unions, governments, and households. Or la-di-da-di everybody. Because it does take a village. And so what we've decided to do with the Enough Initiative is that we have taken targeted state resources along with leveraged private and philanthropic dollars, and to be able to address the issues that we know are both causing generational poverty and keeping communities from being able to move and excel. It states that, and it highlights the fact that you cannot talk about why we have poverty in the first place if you're not talking about the role that government has played. Because let's be clear, and I will use the words of Dr. King, where he said, philanthropy is commendable, but the philanthropists can never forget the economic injustice that makes philanthropy necessary. That there is a larger economic injustice that is taking place that government must help to take the lead in addressing it, but also understanding this: you are never going to address generational concentrated poverty by simply government saying, this is what we will do. Because the truth is, the answers are not coming from governments. The answers are coming from the people. That the people know the answers. But what we've got to do is we've got to shift and change this paradigm, where the people are not just the subjects of the conversation, the people are the ones who are driving the conversation. And so why Enough changes the entire dynamic is that the solutions come from them, from the community. The community decides which initiatives will work. The community decides which initiatives will get resources and supports. The community decides how they will partner together. We are there to simply support. But the community will drive the answers, because we also know the answers are going to be different in different communities. That since we have launched the Enough Initiative, since we have introduced and personally testified on behalf of and was proud to sign the Enough Act in the state of Maryland, that we have now selected 27 different communities around the state of Maryland, urban, rural, and suburban, and went to the communities and said, let us know how we can help and what you need. And so whether the answer was focusing on early education or violence prevention in Park Heights, or whether the answer was going up to Hagerstown in Western Maryland, hey Hagerstown, Western Maryland rolls deep, I love it. and going and saying the issue that we've got to focus on here is going to be early childhood education and dealing with the issue of opioid overdoses. We are not here to dictate to our local communities what solutions are necessary. We're here to support them in their aspirations of making those solutions real. 27 different communities across the state of Maryland that are now focusing on doing things like building new child care centers, providing pre- and postnatal care for new moms, providing supports like making sure that parents are getting the supports that they need to prepare their kids for preschool. Supports like making sure we can build more community schools inside of neighborhoods and we can give job training to parents, because if you really want to help a child, make sure that their parents and caregivers are secure. If you really want to help a parent or a caregiver, make sure that their children are okay. Nobody does this work. And I think one thing that we have seen here in the state of Maryland is that we believe in partnerships. Because partnership produces progress. And nothing else ever will. That's true of fighting poverty. It's true of every single goal we have for our communities. That we will never be able to expand child care alone. We'll never be able to bolster public education alone. We'll never be able to fight poverty alone. That every single fingerprint, every single one of your fingerprints are going to matter in order for us to get this right. It's the fingerprints of your outstanding Executive Director, Matthew Mellon. It's the fingerprints of my dear friend and leader, the Annie Casey Foundation, one of my moms, or employers, Lisa Lawson. It's the fingerprints of Maryland's outstanding Special Secretary for the Governor's Office of Children, Carmel Martin. It's the fingerprints of my friend, Rachel Garbo Monroe, the President and CEO of the Harry and Jeanette Weinberg Foundation. It's the fingerprints of every single person here. It's the reality that I know sometimes in complicated times, people have a choice. Fight or flight. That in complicated times, people have a choice. They can either lean out or lean in. And the reality is that these are complicated times. I get that, I understand it, and I am not minimizing it. But you know what I'm also not doing? Flinching. Because that's not what we're made of. And that's not what we do. In the military, I learned, it's very clear, you never learn anything about anybody in times of ease. Because in easy times, anybody can show you anything. If you ever want to learn anything about anybody, watch them when it was hard. Watch them when it was tough. Watch them when it was difficult. Watch them when the things they gave their life to was broken. In the words of Kipling, and watch them stoop and build them back up with worn out tools. Watch them when it was difficult. We are standing here because there were people who came before us who fought for us. We are standing here because there were people who came before us who were willing to invest in us. We are standing here because there were people who were willing to fight for us, even if they did not know our names. They fought for the hope of us. And today and tomorrow and every single day, we are thinking about this next generation And we are going to fight for the hope of them. So I know, and in closing, I know that we are in a moment where we are watching how previous generations are looking at us. And future generations are looking at us. We've got them both right here. And we have an opportunity to build a society that those who came before us looked for. And we have an opportunity to build a society that those who come after us that they deserve. And they're looking at us and they are hoping that we will not forget the assignment. And so when people in the future say, did this group understand the assignment? I am proud to say that they will be able to look back each and every one of our faces and understand all of the work that we did together and say, yes, they did. So God bless you and thank you, and let's remember to leave no one behind.